I'm very pleased to bring Carolyn Wilke to NHL-timmen. Carolyn, straight out of Denver, actually.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. I guess we could start in that end. What is a Dallas Stars fan doing in Denver?
All of my family lives here pretty much. I used to live in Texas, and that's where I became a Dallas Stars fan. But it's very hot in Texas. I don't know if you've been.
Actually, I was there for the draft this summer, and we lived actually right across from the arena, and we had like a 3 minute walk from the house we rented to the arena, and you were drenched just by walking. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean actually.
Yeah. So after 10 summers of that, my mom had been, you know how moms are, she had been trying to get me to move closer for years. And one summer she flew me out for my birthday so we could go like hike in the mountains because it's beautiful here. And it was 60 degrees. So I guess like, what's that, 20,
Yeah,
20-ish?
something like that.
Um, it at 6 a.m. and in Texas it would have already been in the 30s. And I was just like, all right, I'm sold. You got me. I'm moving to Colorado. I can't be hot anymore.
That sounds like a good move. Although you had, was it painful to move away from your beloved Stars or?
No, well, Colorado is a great hockey state. It
Yeah.
really, really is. There's a lot of people here I've met are Avs fans, so it does make the dating scene kind of hard. But like I can walk into any bar if I'm just having a drink and ask them to put on a hockey game, and they have all of the NHL network and all of that. So like there's a lot of people who really, really love hockey here, and it's pretty fun.
Okay, and obviously you're here because we're going to talk about the Dallas Stars and not the Colorado Avalanche. We'll save that for another show, I guess. But just it was a bit of a strange start to the season, I guess, considering all the injuries. But we're about 1/3 into the season now, and if we start with the good, what would that be if you're a Dallas Stars fan?
I think Tyler's so as far as the good is concerned, I would say our top line is pretty much doing what we wanted the top line to do. And actually probably even a little bit under expectations. So I was pulling up the numbers right before we got on this call, and Tyler Seguin is almost a point per game, and he's only shooting at 6.6%.
Oh,
So that's probably going to change a little bit. And so I think he's going to have another great season. Jamie Benn is not far off a point per game, and he's shooting really like, where he should be, about 14%. Radulov is having a fantastic season as well. He's over a point per game. So I think the top line has been very, very good. My boy John Klingberg had a fantastic start to the season also. He was nearly a point per game himself. And we've been really, really impressed with Miro Heiskanen. He's 19, first year in the league, and like you referenced, all the injuries have meant that like we expected him to be kind of a second pair defenseman, and he's basically our number two guy at this point in time because any given night we're playing 2 to 4 AHL players on defense.
yeah. Yeah, it's been
And if it's
crazy
not,
lately.
yeah, it's a little shaky.
Yeah, I mean there are some names there on that blue line that is like, who are these guys? Are they real people? It's it's on that level at this point. But
It really is.
obviously the injury to Klingberg among others has, I guess it's given like Heiskanen a chance to really show what he can do. What are you most impressed with about him? Since I mean we're talking about a 19-year-old kid here.
He's so smart. He plays smart hockey. He is blazing fast. Like that's awesome and really, really fun to see. Like I think it was his first game. He went end to end on the rink and just like hit the gas, almost scored his first NHL goal on his first shift. Like it was ridiculous. But he plays very, very smart hockey for a 19-year-old, especially. He has excellent awareness in all zones, and really great. I think he does really good stick work also, which is part of, I think, playing smart. And so, yeah, I've just been really impressed with kind of all aspects of his game. Like, he makes bobbles. He's not perfect. I think there's no defender that's perfect. But from how young he is, the fact that he's only ever played 24 NHL games, and how well he's doing, especially with now he's getting something like 25 to 26 minutes a night because there's two people who can be counted on defense, that I'm very, very impressed with him.
Yeah, so he's obviously the biggest exclamation point this far. If we go to the bad and the ugly, what's been the biggest reason of concern this far for the Dallas Stars?
Other than the top line, the forward group has just, I should say, other than the top line and Jason Spezza, who's also having a pretty dang good season, the forward group has been really lacking. And Montgomery has switched it up. He's juggled lines in game, out of game. I think part of it is because the defense is so bad right now. I mean, I guess you shouldn't say so bad. Like, from an actual shots against perspective, we're running about average. But the transition game is completely gone at this point, with Heiskanen having to play almost all defense and Lindell having a rotating cast of partners. Roman Pollock playing over 20 minutes a night. So I think there's definitely the secondary scoring has stepped up, which is great to see. A lot of that has been Jason Spezza having kind of a renaissance season, but we're not getting enough from guys like Val Nichushkin. We're not getting enough from guys like Blake Como, Tyler Pitlick, Matthias Janmark. Radek Faksa only has 7 points on the season. So I think, and then Devin Shore, who was having a really great season, went out for several games. And so he kind of lost his momentum. I think yesterday was his second game back from injury. So he had 13 points on, I think, 18 games before he went out for injury. And now he's got 13 points on 20 games. So we're really so he has been a really good, bright spot. He was a great rookie and then just kind of lost his style, was pushed into a more defensive style. And so he's kind of coming back, but the rest of it is really rough.
Yeah, you mentioned Matthias Janmark there. Obviously in Sweden, we were very impressed with his performance at the World Championships this spring, because he played on the top line with Mika Zibanejad and Rickard Rakell, and they were completely dominating. So I think a lot of people, me included, we expected him to have maybe this coming out party in the NHL this season, but it's been quite the contrary.
Yeah, I think part of it is a little bit of bad luck. He's shooting at 3% right now, so that's unlikely to stay. But yeah, I've really liked Matthias Janmark. He was actually considered quite a coup as a trade. So the Stars acquired him several seasons ago in a trade for Eric Cole. And at the time, he was still playing in Sweden, so basically no one in the U.S. knew who he was, except for Jim Nill, because it was assumed that Jim Nill had actually been one of the guys who scouted him when the Red Wings drafted him.
Yeah.
Because he was drafted when Nill worked for the Red Wings. And so he had a fantastic rookie season, playing almost exclusively next to Jason Spezza. That was the year Jason Spezza got over 60 points. Janmark, I think, was in the high 30s. And so we really expected him to, like Devin Shore, kind of be that next wave of secondary scoring. And he was, I think, too defensively responsible for his own good and kept getting pushed down to the third line and even the fourth line sometimes when Ruff and Hitchcock were a little bit in over their head as far as defense was concerned. And of course, when Spezza had his bad year, he got I mean, he didn't get benched, but he played 12 minutes a night. And so Janmark didn't get the help he needed from a passing perspective to really score. And you're seeing a lot of that this year too, where Janmark is getting shuffled around the lineup and hasn't really found a way to be successful. But I think also part of it is that maybe I don't know. I can't tell you. I really don't know what's going on. I like the kid a lot, and I like how he's tenacious, and I think he really does have a lot to offer offensively. So I'm a little shocked too, and I don't really quite know how to diagnose it, other than maybe he's just being put with line mates who don't particularly have great vision or a way to use his tenacity for offensive good.
And the guy responsible for that, I guess, is new head coach Jim Montgomery, since he took over from Ken Hitchcock, who was the bench boss last year. What have you seen in Montgomery's coaching this far into the season?
I really like Montgomery. I think he deserves a lot of credit for keeping the Dallas Stars in a playoff spot, despite everything that's happened to the roster. And despite, honestly, I think Jim Nill didn't do a particularly good job this offseason either, trying to shore up the offensive issues with the roster. So I think Montgomery is doing a heck of a job. I think he has this philosophy, they call it the process, where he tries to measure possession. He talks about not taking a lot of useless penalties. Over his entire philosophy, there's a great article by Sean Shapiro on The Athletic about it and how it's stacked up. And I do think overall it's a really, really good, solid game plan. I think as a rule, the Stars have not executed it very well. And what I like about him is that both he recognizes this and he takes responsibility for it. And Montgomery came from a university coaching background. He coached University of Denver for several years, took them to a championship. And I think you see with him, as opposed to a lot of coaches, that teaching mentality where he's very, very comfortable instructing and correcting and getting the players motivated from a perspective in that they understand what's being asked of them. And so that's what I like the best about him. The roster was, as we went into the season, was always going to be kind of a bubble team roster. I think most Stars fans recognize that. And the fact that we're playing no Klingberg and still in the playoff spot is very, very encouraging. And I think that's almost solely up to Jim Montgomery and the way he's handling the team. Because if you remember, Dallas had about the same amount of injuries 2 seasons ago, Ruff's last season, and the team just completely collapsed. They had no faith in anything that Ruff was saying. It was a bad scene. It was not great. And Montgomery is getting a lot more out of these players in very difficult situations. So I credit him a lot for that.
Oh, that sounds good. It's, at least promising, considering that they should get healthier at some point this season, and there's a lot of hockey left to be played. So good for him. Obviously, we mentioned that John Klingberg is not playing at the moment. He took a shot from I think it was Evander Kane of the San Jose Sharks in a game, and I think he actually needed surgery on that hand.
Yeah,
he'll be out for some weeks here. But obviously, last season was his, I would say, by far best in NHL. And he scored a lot of points, put up a lot of points. Although Ken Hitchcock was coaching the team, and he's known obviously for being a pretty defensive-minded coach. I know you wrote some stuff about Klingberg deserving to be in the Norris discussion. Is that still something you feel like? Obviously this season is going to be tough since he's missing a lot of time due to this injury. But is he a guy who deserves mentioning among players like Hedman and Carlson and Doughty?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm biased because I'm a huge fan. But you can even see, I think the issue with the Norris is that no one was really quite sure how to quantify it or even qualify it, if we're not even talking about numbers. But for me, part of what makes a Norris defenseman is just how important they are to their team. And I mean, you can see it with Ottawa right now. No Carlson, that team is all over the place. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. You can't even, I mean, Ottawa's its own problem, right? But when you talk about, I mean, if you look at any of these teams, like, what would the Kings be without Doughty? And you're seeing right now what the Dallas Stars are without Klingberg. Micah McCurdy, who has a great website, HockeyViz, does this measure called threat. And the idea behind threat is that it tries to do its absolute best to isolate just player impact. And that's like zone independent, teammate independent, competition independent. And Klingberg is so important to Dallas's attack that there's about a 5% change in their shots for. And that's like all shots, not just like weightage, not like XG, like Corsi. And there's a 3% change negatively in shots allowed without him. But the big change that you see without Klingberg is the power play. Dallas's power play through the first, think of something like 10 games of the season, was third or fourth in the league. Now they're basically dead last. Wow. And that's because Klingberg quarterbacked power play unit 1 and every once in a while power play unit 2. And with Klingberg, Dallas's power play had plus 25% threat, so 25% better than average. And without Klingberg, which has been about almost even minutes, is 35% worse than average.
Well, that's kind of a difference.
It's huge.
Yeah.
He's such a smart player, and like that's the thing about Klingberg that I think people don't realize. Like he's a good skater, but he's not like the best skater you will ever see. He's not actually particularly fast. Like he's not slow, but he's not like a blazing speed kind of person. He's just very, very smart. And he can see the ice in ways that a lot of other people can't. And that's why he's able to get some of those plays made that the guys who are filling in for him on defense right now can't. And we've seen a lot of really great growth in the game of Esa Lindell, but he's just not Klingberg. Like he does his absolute best to do zone exits and zone entries, and he's good. I've really actually liked seeing him grow as a player, but with him and Klingberg as a pair, they're one of the best pairs in the entire NHL. But without Klingberg, he can't generate the same kind of offense because he's just not getting the same kind of pucks.
Yeah. So, what are the expectations now for the Dallas Stars? I mean, as we mentioned, they're probably going to get healthier at some point. Klingberg is soon going to be back in the lineup, and as you described, that it's probably going to make a huge difference. But what is your outlook for this team?
I have no idea. That's the thing. That is so. Coming into this season, it was very much no one had any idea of what was going to happen. New coach, kind of an roster, but we did have a few superstars who could superstar their way. We have very average goalies. Fortunately, we have 2 of them now because Ben Bishop is injured also. So when you have a bunch of average and a couple of game breakers, you can do okay, especially if you have a good coach. And of course, we didn't know how Monty was going to be. But then we lost a game breaker but we learned that Monty's a pretty good coach. But then we lost our average goalie, and now it's just like, woo, like. I'm just hoping that when we get healthy, we get some more fun hockey. I like when teams play fast. At the beginning of the year, when everybody was healthy, Dallas played really fast. And so I think that's my expectation, is that we'll get faster, we'll be more fun, and I have no idea if it's going to be any good.
It remains to be seen, I guess. So
yes.
Carolyn, thank you so much for joining NHL-timmen, and where can people read the stuff or listen to the stuff that you do?
So you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Classlicity. I don't write a whole lot about hockey anymore, but I work with the Hockey Graphs blogging collective. And I also do have a Dallas Stars podcast with a good friend of mine, Marin, and that's at Deep Heart Hockey on Twitter, if you want to follow that.
And on iTunes, where can you find the podcast?
Yeah, it's Deep in the Heart of Hockey. So you can find that on iTunes or Spotify as well.
Deep in the Heart of Hockey. Thank you so much,
yep.
Carolyn.
Thank you.